Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I woke this morning to the radio as usual, and it was on a station that is supported by the taxpayer. And the announcer said, well, the Congress is working today on what it's been doing all year long. It's going to attempt to regulate, well, it's going to attempt to regulate about everything. And that's where we find ourselves. I think what the American people want in this whole debate and in the work product that comes out of this Congress is for us as a Congress to fix what's wrong in our system, but leave alone what's right. And I'm troubled by the comments of some of my friends on the other side of the aisle, especially as it relates to the fact that many believe that the problems that we find ourselves in right now are the result of, quote, no regulation. That was the quote. Mr. Chairman, that's revisionist history is what that is. The fact of the matter is, if we as a society decide that we're here because there was no regulation, or it was a failure of deregulation, or it was a failure of free market capitalism, then I would suggest that every single American loses. Our children lose, our grandchildren lose, our society loses, freedom loses, because every single solution then will result in more regulation and fewer choices and opportunities for the American people. In fact, I was trying to figure out what we're regulating, and what we're regulating is a decrease in the American dream. And so I would hope that what we would do as a committee is to look seriously at this alternative, which, as my friend from Minnesota said, is targeted and appropriately fixes what's wrong with our current system. The underlying bill, there are multiple problems with the underlying bill, and I know that our friends on the other side take issue with the fact that it's a job killer, but it is. It absolutely kills jobs. The money only grows on trees here in the federal government. And with real businesses and real people across this land who try their best to make certain that they create jobs in their community, that requires money. And if we are going to increase the capital requirements for businesses and sectors of our society that did nothing wrong, nothing to contribute to the problems that we've had, then all that does is decrease the ability for them to create more jobs in the community. We forget when we talk about capital that we're talking about money. Maybe if we just put in money every time we talked about capital, we'd get a better answer. Or margin, which is money. We're ignoring so many of the folks that came before our committee to testify. John Hickson of Cargill Company came on October 7th and said, when he testified at this hearing, stated that it would cost approximately $1 billion in additional money that Cargill would have to borrow. Then Cargill will have to decide whether to continue with the construction of a new facility or whether to put that money into margin. And obviously, $1 billion is a lot of jobs. It's a lot of jobs, not just for that company, but for their new construction, for people that would be building that facility. So it is a job killer, and it's important that that gets on the record, because the fact of the matter is the substitute offered by Mr. Garrett from New Jersey is not a job killer. The underlying bill, as has been stated, empowers government. It says over and over and over the government knows best, that the people don't know best, that in fact we ought not be asking or demanding that our regulators do the right thing. We ought to be creating more regulation. Well, that's clearly not the direction in which we need to go. And the underlying bill clearly creates another system of failure. Like the Office of the Federal Housing Enterprise Oversight and HUD, the former regulators of the failed Fannie and Freddie, and the proposed CFPA, or the Consumer Financial Products Act that we're about to discuss. This underlying bill, would set up a remarkably new labyrinth of regulatory structure that depends on two agencies that haven't necessarily gotten along in the past. So, Mr. Chairman, rather than rolling the dice with the taxpayers' money, I would suggest that what we ought to do is take a proposal that doesn't increase the burden on business, that rewards those folks that have done the right thing, that maintains that which works well in our system currently and fixes that which needs addressing, That's what the American people want us to do. That's what will result in more jobs across this nation and the opportunity for our economy to bounce back. And I yield back.
Gentleman from Indiana.